All right, gentlemen, I'm going to try and make a little video to just explain my thoughts on getting the best result for the building wrap that we're doing in Brisbane, if I'm not able to be there. I will have one of my fellows will be on site, so he has had some experience in doing these. Okay, so starting off a few things. Definitely, if the wind's over about 20 kilometres an hour, I'd be inclined to not do it at all. I think past there, it just gets too windy when they're not attached. Stage two for me would be lining up the banners on top of the gantry. So having them all lifted up, taken up, or however you're getting them up onto the gantry, at the base of the scaffold where they're about to go, put them in a row, line them up there. Two things would happen next. Firstly, panel one, I'd be putting some slings around, probably 3 slings, maximum maybe 2 slings, and winching up to the highest point on the scaffold. You'll be needing a couple of buoys up there to be able to hold and attach this to the top rung. During this period, I'd also be having a couple of buoys putting the semicircle 6-inch conduit over the corners of the steps so that when the mesh wraps around the steps, the bay, it doesn't get poked through. I'd also be making sure that there's a very smooth finish on the front of the scaffold. We don't want things sticking out, etc. Obviously, they're going to go through the mesh. So you would take up this first panel, winch it up to the top, have 3 buoys probably at the top, and their task is to get the top rail of the banner and strap it to the uppermost crossbars on the scaffold. It's a pretty straightforward job. It will go round through the pockets and back through the pole, and I'd be using the strap with the cam buckle, so it's a circular loop with a cam buckle, tighten it, then trim off the excess, and having about 1 or 2, for that 5-metre panel, I'd probably be using three straps up top. So have that up there, tight as possible, still the whole thing strapped up. And then once that top section's done, I'd be gently lowering it. So I'd be lowering the first panel to the first next bar. So that's about 2 or 3 metres, I think, off the top of my head. I'd definitely be using some roping system to gently be able to lower that once it's been strapped up. When you get to the first pole, that's where I'd be focusing my attention now. So on the maybe 2 levels down on the scaffold, I'd be having buoys utilising the big cable ties that we have, the 750 mils, and attaching to anywhere on the scaffold that can take downward load. So it can be pulling down. All the load from here on in, you've got the top attached tightly, will be pulling down. So all the straps are to be going down or sideways for tension. So I'd be having those on that first pole attaching to the bar, back to the scaffold, downwards, anywhere to keep that as tight as possible. You don't need to make it super tight yet because you will be coming back to retension. But I'd be doing down, getting the tension on that pole, plus the side eyelets, attaching them to the outermost parts of the scaffold also, to give as much tension as possible at this stage. And then I'd keep going to each pole section. So I'd be rolling it down another 3 metres, retensioning, another 3 metres, retensioning down and across. And then eventually you get to the last one, where you'd start using the ratchet straps that we've provided. So they'd be wrapping around the pole and one section going to the star point on the base of the scaffold to give maximum tension. So once that's maximum tension down, I'd then be running up and down and getting the thing as smooth as a drum. So you want tension back, you want tension sideways, and you want tension down. So everything is just as tight as it possibly can be. Couple of things to note when putting the cable ties into the poles, on the poles that are down the path of the panel 1. Don't cut through the front of the panel, only cut through the back pocket and then around the pole and back underneath the pocket. Make sure that the cable tie doesn't go through and ruin the actual image on the front. So that's that section. And I think that pretty well covers it. Most of it will be intuitive when you're on site, but I would be going up and down, finishing that first panel before attempting anything else. Secondly, we of course will be going up to do the panel number 2, which covers the area around the stairwell. So I'd be hoisting that up. The poles on there would only be the width of the front section. We will be folding the flaps back. Here, I'd be using the same system. I'd be rolling down the front, doing the same with the poles. You will have the flaps on the side hanging out. So I would probably, once you've got a few poles down, start bringing them back loosely. These don't want to be tightened till the very end, so once we've got everything in play. So coming down, dropping, 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 same as the first one, and then bringing the side flaps back and tensioning back to the scaffold. So you've got, again, a nice, tight, smooth finish. Then we have panel 3, once again, quite straightforward. It's only a small panel. And then the only complication moving forward is, I believe, between panel 4 and 5, there's a join, there's a Kedar join, which needs to be threaded from the bottom. Sail track will be threaded through that, and then the sail track will be attached back onto the shackles, back to the scaffold. Scott, you're across this, so you might want to explain through to Bruce the actual techniques. My man on the ground hasn't used that particular concept before. However, it should be relatively straightforward. It might be a bit of mucky around trying to thread it for the first time. So you'd want to be actually having both panels down, not tensioned, but tensioned enough, and then threading and then retightening everything. You will learn from the first few panels that the tensioning, that you go back and forth and keep going, etc., does make a tremendous amount of difference. The thing needs to be tight, which minimises all the wind loading that happens. That's basically my thought. It's in a very simplistic way, but we need to make sure that it's winched up correctly and safely, that when you get it to the top, you strap the top bar on tightly, and then you're very slow and methodical and rolling down the front of the sign. This is not a place for rushing, nor a place for having loose bits, etc., But Scott, you'll be on site. My man Elliot will be on site. And hopefully with Jason and the scaffold boys, everything should work pretty quickly. I potentially will be there. If not, I'll certainly be available on the phone. So good luck, gentlemen, and speak to you shortly. Thanks.